Hey, what's up guys? This is a stream highlight from the other day, covering a funny little video from a few months ago that caught my eye randomly. Their argument is that kink belongs in LGBT pride events because it is essentially who they are. So, with an idea as unhinged as that, I couldn't resist but to react to it. Hopefully you all enjoy, and don't forget to subscribe here on YouTube, like, comment, etc. And of course, head on over to my Twitch and drop me a follow for the next little live stream that I do.
By car crashes. It's crazy. I remember watching this film when I was younger and I just thought, what the fuck is going on here? And bringing it back to queerness, I think it's incredibly important to mention that in fact, the 50s, the 40s, the 60s, around that time period, being queer was seen as a fetish. Lots of people thought that being attracted to someone of the same sex could only be sexual in nature, and so it had to be defined along with the fetishes that people knew of at the time. Of course, in that time period, a lot of people thought it was a mental illness to be queer as well. So it's important to remember that queerness was intrinsically linked by allo cishet people as a fetish. However, kink in itself is defined more openly as the use of non...
Like, what are you going to try and say? Like, are you going to continue to just state that... Are you just going to continue to state that, like, the main reason why kink belongs in, like, LGBT fucking events is because people 50 years ago labeled it as a mental illness and a kink? Like, and then it was only sexual in nature? Is that really your argument? Because that's kind of a shit argument. Like, people thought a lot of crazy fucking shit back in the fucking days, alright? They also thought, like... didn't like Native Americans at one point think that like cameras stole your fucking soul or some shit? Like, we all have these wild fucking beliefs in the past. It's the past. People believe crazy shit. You can't then continue to use that as a reason to justify future shit.
Conventional sexual practices. So you can see how there's a lot of overlap between kink and fetish. And of course, as we've discussed, there's a lot of overlap between being queer and fetish. It's actually really funny when I like when I'm just like looking at this stuff like on Wikipedia and what have you for this video. It's like, look at what this says here. Kink sexual practices go beyond what are considered conventional sexual practices. It's like, what are conventional sexual practices? What, like, penis go in hole? Like, what?
Yeah,
what is that?
much.
Like, I don't know anybody. Listen, allo cishet people watching, you cannot sit there and tell me that sex for you is just put penis in hole. You can't tell me that that's all it is. I know it's more than that. It has to be. Anyway, I'm fucking digressing. It just makes me so fucking mad that people are so opposed to kink and BDSM in wider society when I know for a...
What? That makes you mad? God, you're fucking stupid. It's, like, painfully so. Yes, believe it or not, typically we have to have a standardized thing to then explain on what is not standardized. As much as you wish it weren't true, being gay is not the standard. You know why? Because the vast majority of the population of the world is straight. So therefore, the standard isn't being gay. The standard isn't going to include all of this fucking differences that are out in the world. Like, I don't understand what you're fucking, like, that's like saying that, that's like saying that there are standard, I don't know, fucking sodas out there, right? Like, you're standardized, like, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, fucking Coke, like, but if you talk about, I don't know, fucking, God, what's a random off-brand soda? I can't even think. Like, I'm drinking fucking Mellow Yellow, right? Like, that means you think that these things are just hated on. Like, they're just despised by the main population because they're not the standard. They're not the norm. Which is fucking just stupid.
a fact that there are certain things that get people's rocks off that are considered vanilla, but they are absolutely, within the definition, fetish. Kink is of course seen as deviant for that reason, that sex should...
This is the thing I hate most about these types of people, is that if they got their way, terms would mean nothing. Because all terms are offensive. It's so ridiculous. Like, that is the basic argument here, is that because it's labeled as the norm or a standard, therefore it's bad, and people are saying that the non-norm and the non-standard are like bad things by definition, when in reality all we're stating is that these aren't the norm. This isn't what the majority of people do or enjoy. It's not that fucking complicated. It's really not. And your whole, it can be vanilla but still be a kink, blah blah blah. Yeah, again, you're just mixing terminology. You're trying to play this fucking word game that most people with fucking 2 brain cells are not going to fall into.
Should just be penis going vagina. That's it. It shouldn't be anything other than that. Kink is clearly something that goes against traditional conservative Christian values, as of course sex is seen in Christianity and lots of other religions as a glorious divine act of reproduction. It's never seen for what it actually is, which is just like a bunch of sweaty, weird, advanced apes looking to pursue pleasure in whatever way they can, because the mundane existence of this life on Earth is completely fucking depressing and we need an outlet. Anyway, sorry, I'm projecting a little bit here.
A little bit? That's a lot of projection. Holy shit. We get it. You are unhappy with your fucking life. Maybe do something to change that instead of sitting here and complaining on the fucking internet like a goddamn loser. Holy shit. That's mean, but I don't even care. Like this, I can't stand people like this. Like, it's the classic literally wants to be a victim. That's all this is. This is a person who wants to be a victim. They don't actually have something to complain about, so they're creating shit to complain about because there's nothing good out there right now.
And of course, when it comes down to that argument that sex should just be for reproduction, this ultimately harms people who are capable of getting pregnant. This is why we see things happening in the US, like abortion bans. Because how dare you have sex for your own gratification? No.
What? How are you equating this? What the fuck are you talking about? Like, actually, what are you fucking talking about? No one is saying that you can't, that like we're gonna remove abortion rights simply because you had sex for the pleasure, therefore bad. No. The main argument against abortion is the fact that the fetus is viewed as a human life. Therefore, you can't kill a human life. God, you're fucking stupid.
Flog yourself, heretic. Put a hood over your head and get a cat and 9 tails and whip yourself on the back as penance for your horrific sin. Weird how that shit just legit used to happen in the Catholic Church, eh? And now they say that we're the fucking deviants? But you can see how these arguments relate to each other. Sexual gratification?
No, I don't.
Bad. Having sex without wanting to reproduce? Bad. It all links in together.
How many people actually make that argument? I'm genuinely curious. How many people do you actually think make the argument that sex is specifically just for reproduction and that's it? That's like some hardcore fucking religious values right there. And don't even try to say it's just fucking Christian values, because guess what? It's several other fucking religions as well. But these are like ideas that you're talking about that haven't been really believed since the goddamn fucking Middle Ages. Like, what the fuck is this bullshit argument? I can't say nobody, but the vast majority of people don't believe that sex is simply just for reproduction, and that's it. Most people agree that sex is for reproduction and pleasure. Even the most hardcore fucking conservative Christian fucking value people are still going to say, like, yeah, sex can be for pleasure, but it's with your significant other. It's with your wife or husband. Like, that's it. So this argument that like, there's this mass group of people who are protesting anti-fucking anti-sex for pleasure is retarded.
And brings about Another perfect argument for intersectionality. Kink is sexual liberation.
What?
And as we've already discussed, it's one of the only things that queers were allowed to have as part of our identities. They forced us into this box with other deviants, and so we decided to own it. But mule, you cry. What if a kid sees a guy in leather? Just ask yourself right now, do those same arguments extend to people like bikers? What if a kid sees a biker wearing leather? I'll go you one further. What if a kid sees someone kissing on TV? No, not queers, just this.
Oh my god. Yep, we're gonna downplay it. We're gonna downplay like there aren't literally people in fucking assless chaps and fucking ridiculous fucking outfits walking around on leashes and being fucking beaten with whips and shit. Yeah, that's not happening. It's just men in leather. Shut the fuck up.
Cishet man and a cishet woman kissing. What if a kid sees that? That shit's all over Hollywood. In fact, it's
Nobody's complaining
in
about
a
this.
lot of kids' films. So does your argument extend to that? Arguments like this really highlight the lack of knowledge people have about kids and childcare.
You're one to fucking talk about anybody saying anything to do with anybody having lack of knowledge. You have downplayed every single argument. Like, you've created I hate people like this. You create your own arguments to argue against and then act superior. And it's so fucking cringe.
In general. If you think for a second that when a kid sees someone kissing, or even less obviously sexual and romantic than that, a guy wearing leather at Pride, if you think for a second that
Nobody's
that is going
arguing
to
about
all of
that.
a sudden turn a switch in a kid's head and turn them into, I don't fucking know, what do you think it's going to turn them into? Lots of people make the argument that it makes kids more susceptible to abuse.
Wait, what? Real account of child sexual grooming and abuse, plus mentions of psychological and physical abuse. Skip to 19 to avoid. Okay.
I wasn't exposed to any queerness when I was growing up. And yet, I still got groomed. I was groomed at the age of 13 by a cis woman. I was then later on groomed when I was 16 by another cis woman, who was my teacher, who was my counselor for that previous incident. These things don't happen because we're exposed to certain stimuli. These things happen because people hate children. These things happen because capitalism forces parents to be incredibly authoritarian with their...
Oh my god, we're gonna blame fucking capitalism for child grooming. Oh my... We're gonna blame capitalism?
kids. I know that when I was groomed, it was because I was trying to rebel against my parents. My stepdad was incredibly
What?
psychologically and physically abusive to me. So at a very early age, I tried to get out of the house as often as I could. I ended up meeting a bunch of other kids who had similar situations, and we all ended up doing a bunch of drugs. And of course, it's not exactly safe for kids to be doing drugs on the street. So when one of my friend's mums told us that we could go to her house and do drugs at her house without fear of being arrested or beaten up or anything like that, of course, we all jumped at the chance. But that basically meant that she could groom us, and that was her intent the whole time. So the next time you're going to make the argument as to whether someone is going to get groomed because they've seen a guy wearing leather at Pride, ask yourself if a kid looking at a tree means that they're going to get groomed. Ask yourself if a kid watching a disaster on television means that they're going to get groomed. And another thing you've got to ask yourself is kink inherently sexual? I haven't even mentioned in this video all the ace and aro people who are incredibly into kink.
Is kink inherently sexual? Yes. What kind of fucking question is this? Of course it's inherently fucking sexual. That's like the definition of the goddamn word. What the fuck are you on about? Like, I don't understand. Again, you're trying to create arguments that nobody actually has to then win against and be like, haha, I've basically defeated all of the people who never made this argument ever. Nobody's sitting here saying that because some kid sees bikers in leather that they're going to be fucking groomed. Although, you could actually make that argument. You could actually make the argument that kids seeing criminals doing fucking, like, sketchy shit and looking cool or whatever is going to make them have stronger feelings about wanting to be somebody like that. Yes, that's a pretty common commonly known fucking phenomenon that happens, so I don't know what the fuck your argument is there. Like, for fuck's sakes. So not only is your argument not something that anybody has really ever said, at least that I've ever heard, but your argument is wrong. And it actually is true that kids do get influenced. I'm not going to fucking call it grooming because that's fucking weird. Kids do get fucking influenced into things like that. Seeing violence on fucking TVs and shit. Yes, that we've had countless fucking studies talking about the effect of seeing violence on television and media sources on children. So your fucking argument that them seeing this or whatever else, well, if they could see, violence on TV, why can't they see two grown men basically dry humping through their fucking assless leather chaps in the fucking streets at a pride event? I don't know, like... I feel like it's pretty obvious as to what the answer is here, but you're just kind of fucking too stupid to realize it.
I'm going to explain to you a couple of my kinks. As I displayed rather fervently earlier in the video, I'm into ropes and I'm into spanking. I am what you would call a sadist when it comes to kinks. I enjoy taking control of people of any gender, tying them up, spanking them, humiliating them, and degrading them. But here's the catch. I can play like this for hours with someone. And of course, I just want to absolutely state that kink, in general, it has to be consensual. I'm doing these things to people who want someone to do them to them. I can have someone tied up for hours, and I can be spitting on them, I can be spanking them, I can be calling them a fucking filthy cum-slut bitch. And not once will I feel a twinge in my genital region. But the definition of kink is the use of non-conventional sexual practices. Yeah, of course. Kink is seen as deviancy and sexual in nature because it's different. When I dominate people, I'm exerting a certain amount of control on them. Control that I don't necessarily have in my day-to-day life. What little things I can control about my life, I am terrified are going to be taken away from me by the people who control us. The ruling elite, the government. What happens if the online bill goes through and the Tories say that I can no longer create content?
Wait, what? Online safety bill, new offenses entitled...
As a leftist on the internet, I'm fucked. I can't afford to move to another country. And of course, there is the chaotic nature of existence itself. Do we have control on whether we get diseases and die? Do we have control as to whether we get in a car accident or not? My kink is linked to my anxieties. And kink and BDSM is a way for me to exercise those demons. I can be in complete control of someone, and I can make them feel safe. And that makes me feel safe. And this is why kink is incredibly intimate. And I just really want to state, so it's very, very clear to everybody watching this video, that the explanation I've given of kink and fetish is a really reduced one. Like, remember, I make my...
So, like, okay, your kink specifically is insanely intimate and you have control over somebody. Cool. What about somebody who doesn't have any of those types of kinks? What about somebody who just, I don't know, likes to be fucking spit on or some shit, right? Like, you're just making your arguments from your own point of view and from your own circumstances and then trying to be like, oh yeah, see, like, you can't even argue against this. Like, shut the fuck up.
My video is very short and to the point. I'd highly recommend that you check out Cat Black's video on an actual BDSMer watches 50 Shades of Grey, because it's really important to know that consent is key when it comes to kink and fetish. Cat Black is just fucking phenomenal. Please go and give her a sub anyway, even if you're not going to watch that video. She's got fucking phenomenal content. But the long and short of this video is this. Allo cishet normativity demands that we give up kink so that we are not openly deviant. And when I say openly deviant, I mean that we are seen. Kink belongs at Pride because kink is attached.
Shut the fuck up. That is not anybody's fucking argument, you weirdo. For fuck's sakes, how many times do I have to fucking explain this? There is no... There's absolutely no reason that you need to have these insanely explicit shows of kink in your events. Just walking down the fucking street. There's no reason. None. Like, keep that shit in the bedroom or with your private fucking groups whenever you want. I don't care at that point. Like, if you want to do it in, like, some fucking club or whatever, like, there's some like a fucking strip club or something where people get together and do these fucking these showings with each other, that's fine. I don't fucking care. But like in a public setting, no, it's not fucking appropriate. And I don't care how many times you try and make the argument that it totally is, that we should be completely allowed to show off kink bullshit in the middle of the fucking street just because, but it's part of our fucking gay culture bullshit. It's not true. It's just not. You can make the argument a million fucking times. It's just fucking not. Your kink is not your fucking sexuality. That's a preference.
To queerness in a way that is fundamentally oppressed by society. Queer people, generally speaking, have a lot of repressed trauma. Why the hell should we listen to other queer people who clearly haven't addressed that trauma that say that we shouldn't be open about what we do in the shadows? We're open about the fact that we love each other, even though in a lot of cases we're forced to do that in the shadows too. The far right wants us to be divided. It wants us to have these arguments. It wants the queer community to be constantly on the back foot trying to defend itself. Because it knows if we just exist in the way that we exist, without resorting to arguments and without arguing with each other, then we have won. We've always been here, and we're always gonna be here. And it's incredibly important to remember that. Basically, younger queers, know your history. It's embarrassing when you don't. Thank you so much for watching this video. Sorry that I had a week break in between making videos. It just got quite a lot for me, to be honest. It was pretty overwhelming seeing the response to my other video. Huge shout out to FD Signifier for the share, and of course my beautiful friend Sophie from Mars. And speaking of Sophie, please go and check out Sophie's announcement video for the Red Planet stream for Trans Power. It's going to be taking place on May the 20th to May the 22nd on all four of the hosts'
Jesus. It's so fucking weird to me, bro. It's so weird, and it's just like objectively wrong. Like half the shit that you say is just completely bullshit. Like, sorry to tell you. I don't understand why people act like this. Like, why people think that they need to do these weird fucking things in public to be free and to fucking be themselves. Like, no, you don't. You really don't. And nobody's making the argument that you like can't do these things in private. Like, that's fine. I mean, I'm sure there are people that make that argument, but most people are not making that argument. Most people are fine with you doing whatever you want to do in the fucking safety of your own home. We don't care. But to say that you have to do it out in the middle of the fucking open to be able to be who you are, like, well, then maybe you're taking your sexual preferences as way too big of a part of who you are. Maybe that's your issue. Oh, Jesus.